Welcome to Bereavement and Joy. We're so glad you are here. The purpose of this podcast is to facilitate a way for God to meet you where you are. Whether stuck in bed, unable to get up, robotically going through life, or maybe you're further along in the journey and grief has become your companion. God has a special message for your heart. In today's episode, we are going to talk about the well of grief. And this is going to reflect back on the story of the woman at the well. And I know most of you may know this story well, but if you don't, go back and read John chapter 4, verses 4 through 30 to get that totality of the story. But it's basically a story where God meets a Samaritan woman at the well, where she's there at the heat of the day to avoid all the other women in the town because she carries much shame and there's a lot of gossip about her. So she goes there to avoid them, and Jesus meets her there. It was one of my favorite stories, and I can relate to it on so many different levels in my life. So, of course, God also used this story to help me relate in my grief journey as well. Because Jesus meets you where you are. You know, the whole basis of this podcast that I was called to do is I believe God was saying, I want to use you as a vessel to help me reach people where they are. Like we say in the beginning every week on this podcast, God wants to meet you where you are, whether stuck in bed, unable to get up, robotically going through your life, or maybe you're carrying grief as your companion. You've been on this journey a lot longer. He wants to meet you, and he wants to give a message to you. And that's what this story of the woman at the well reminds me of, how God went out of his way on his journey to meet her at that well. And in the same way, Jesus wants to meet us wherever we are in our grief journey. I also can relate to her going to that well at the heat of the day, at the worst possible time, just to avoid having to deal with the people, with the gossip, with all the things that were going on. And in grief, sometimes we can feel so depleted, without any energy, without any desire to be out in the world, to engage with other human beings, that we just want to be alone. And we want to just take in our sorrow and hold it closely. And we don't want other people in that space. So it can remind me in my grief of be like going to that well just to sit at a time when I know nobody else is going to be there because I don't want other people around me in this time. And I'm feeling alone and I'm feeling depleted. And then the well itself symbolizes the feeling of drowning in your sorrow with no hope of recovery. You know, I can see myself sitting on the side of a well, just looking down in that water and thinking, yeah, that is all the tears of just leaning over that well and crying and crying and crying until it is filled full of all my pain, of all the sorrow, of all the missing of our loved one that has gone ahead of us. And in the midst of that, you can just get caught up and overwhelmed and feel like you are drowning in the sorrow and that there is no hope of recovery. There's no hope of better days. There's no hope of life being any other way than the way it is right now in this pain that I'm in. And that can be overwhelming and all-consuming. But Jesus will go out of his way to meet you there. He sees you there. He knows you're sitting at that well and you are crying. He knows that you're being taken over by the darkness of your emotions and your feelings and of hopelessness. And that's not where he wants you to stay. So he's going to make that journey. He's going to change whatever is going on that day. He's going to take the long way around like he did for that Samaritan woman to make sure that you get to have that encounter with him so that he can change everything. Because he changes the atmosphere when he is present. And He can change your perspective of your current circumstances. He can change that by just being there. He comes and He offers that same living water that He gave to the Samaritan woman. He wants to give that same living water to us. And the living water that He's meeting us with at this well of grief is the reminder that death has been defeated. Therefore, life is eternal. And think about that, the beautiful reminder that we can forget sometimes in the midst of our pain, in the midst of the loss of our loved one not being right here physically with us anymore. We can get so caught up in that. And Jesus reaches out and says, "Here, take a drink of my living water, the truth of my word, the truth of your circumstances that I don't want you to lose focus of. The truth is, death is defeated and eternity is here. And your loved one is good and well and alive because there is no more death. And as you accept this cup He offers you, you begin to feel the spirit of your loved one come to life as He reminds you that they are here with me. They're in the eternal home. They are getting their reward. That begins to help you lift your head off the side of that well. It's helping you catch a breath, have a glimpse of hope. And hope begins to spring up in your heart and flow through your soul. The sorrow you were just drowning in reverses into a life-giving flow. And you walk away with an eternal perspective and whisper to your loved one, "I'll see you in a minute." I hope you found some encouragement in today's episode. If so, please like and share. And I would love to hear from you. You can email me at tracy@bereavementjoy.org. Until next time.